Welcome back, wonderful tome readers. We are doing some art for the purpose of helping calm down, because there have been some rough news in the news of late. I've already cried the tears I'm willing to devote to it. Hence the rough throat coming back. I've gotten enough past the absolutely fucking pissed stage that I think I can talk about on stream. But first, I'm going to talk a bit about what I'm going to do today. I can't remember what the type of artwork we're going to do is called. I know I learned it in high school. And the way my teacher taught me it was immediately after a very sketchy type of art where you do just like general lines to kind of get the shape you're going for, and then you go back over it later with an ink pen, and then showing us how to remove the the old graphite and pencil marks and what have you. And he immediately went to like the polar opposite, where instead of like a bunch of little hatchy, sketchy type lines like I just did, it's all about doing smooth, purposeful lines and making continuous art like that layered over each other. No erasing. It's all ink pen, and it could be random if you wanted, like this. The point, though, no little incidents like this. No. Ink pen, you had to be as smooth as possible. Every stroke intentional. Everyone. It could create some really impressive looking art. Effects like this, and then just continuously building. And it's actually the same type of art where I learned the phrase learning to hide your sins in the in the context of art, where if you make just a little bit of oopsie like that, finding a way to make it look intentional, smoothing it out, going back and filling in segments, what have you. And I'm going to be doing that. I have these sections, which are off limits, as you might be able to guess from the bumpy shape here, which does not fully vibe with this art style. No, it honestly does not. But as you might guess from this, this is the outline of text, which I already have made up on another layer in different color scheme, and that I have shaped like this. Well, actually, I forgot another one of the goals is I was not gonna do this boring like off gray color. I was actually gonna do something kind of pastel. How about just really light blue? How does that actually looks really good? I do like that, but I'm gonna add just a bit more blue into it. How about there? There you go. That's a bit more clear. And before we go into shapes, go to this layer, the boundaries, recolor those. Okay. Yeah, over the course of this stream, I'm hoping to get enough this done that I can wrap it up. I'm giving myself up to an hour and a half, because I think it about sums up the things I'm going to talk about today. One second. I am going to turn down this music bit just because my throat is a little rough. I'm scared it's going to drown me out. But if anyone wants me to like turn it up or something, please say the word. But yeah, we're going to try to go the full length that we usually do, a 4-hour stream. With a personal limit of hour and a half, maybe a little extra if I feel like I'm close to the end, doing this style. Now, to start with, I'm gonna kind of smooth out here. Oh, wait a second, I just realized it did not actually change that. Why not? Weird. Why is this lighter than that layer? That's weird. Maybe it's because I'm on a different layer? One sec. That's got it. Alright, I guess this layer I'll just deselect. There we go. GIMP was being real weird there for a second. But yeah, it's for those of you who don't know, there's been some really distressing news out of Kansas. Very distressing. To put it in a way that a lot of people probably are not going to judge it as, they have figured out a way to legally disenfranchise voters. What does this mean? For those who do not know those political terms well enough, disenfranchise a voter means taking away their vote. This typically happens, and this is not every state, but enough. But if you become a felon, like you were judged in a court of law as a felon, typically you will just straight up lose your right to vote. It is one of the very few ways to disenfranchise voters that were in effect until Kansas's latest decision. Because the thing is, it is not going to be advertised as disenfranchising voters. No, it's going to be advertised as forcing trans people to go by their birth genders. By making their legally changed and updated driver's license, changing that it uses their preferred gender rather than their gender as assigned at birth. Something which was absolutely legal when they made those changes, and the state is just trying to walk it back. The thing is, though, that sort of action is supposed to be protected by ipso facto laws. Another political term, and is usually, at least in the way that I was taught it, applied to things like gun rights. There are certain guns that you can buy and sell freely without requiring background checks of any sort. In fact, you can do so freely that you can even mail said models through like the regular post. Other than like a simple like designator that it is a firearm, you are legally allowed to do so. And it has to do with a gun's age. Ipso facto laws refer to things that are legal due to it being legal at the time said product was made. For example, there are some cars that you can modify in ways that are illegal for modern vehicles because they would not otherwise fit modern requirements of safety. Things that would alter the framework of a car, and things that we have since discovered weaken it in regards to things like an accident, make things more dangerous for the people in the car. They're still legal because it was legal when those cars came out. It was legal when those guns came out to be able to send them through the mail, but they just no longer are due to, how easily and quickly one could get them into the hands of someone with illegal purposes in mind. Because ipso facto is pretty much Latin for at the time. And that's probably an oversimplification, because I did learn that from family. But the issue still stands. If something was legal at the time, and the law changes so it is no longer legal, usually that remains to be so. With only few exceptions, and it's usually built off of case of something that got like almost national, like Supreme Court level case type dealies. Oh shoot, I forgot to get this one art reference here. One sec. I'm trying to recreate something as smoothly as I can. Shit, come on. I don't want the recreations people did for cosplay. Shit. What if I choose logo? There we go. Sorry about that. Where was I? Right. Ipso facto laws are supposed to keep things legal even if the law changes. For example, same-sex marriage. Protected by ipso facto laws if you got married shortly after it was made legal. So even if states were to, say, make it illegal, it's fine because you got married when it was legal. They cannot go back and suddenly make it illegal to have done it. It would cause some potential issues with certain products if it could suddenly be rated as illegal, and people who did not notice the law change could get in trouble for having acted as they did before. Let's see, how am I going to do this bit? Reduce brush size, yeah. So, factor laws protect people from being made criminals just by a change in law happening that is easily missed. It is supposed to protect from situations like this where it's like, oh, well, it was legal for you to, get your gender marker changed at the time, but we're saying it's not anymore. Your license is no longer valid. You have to come in and get it changed. That's fucked up. That is dangerous. They have made people criminals that they very well may not know until they get pulled over by some routine traffic stop, someone just chasing a quota, for example, and be arrested for something that... Sorry, getting a little worked up. Something that Republicans and transphobes are trying to make illegal for no good reason. People just being happy in their own skin. Being happy with who they are and how they identify. People who they do not want to be protected in the eyes of the law against discrimination or something being ruled as a hate crime. People will be put in danger by this ruling. And that is by design. They do not want people to feel safe. They don't even want their own people to feel safe. They want them to feel scared, willing to lash out at anyone and everyone. That is still not good enough. Because you see, if their own people can't even feel safe, that means it is a lot easier to control them with fear. And if no one else feels safe, but they're able to successfully sell a message that they can make them safe, it's also all the better for them. So we're going to make this go here. Because we are using a computer and pixels might not always go exactly the way I want them, we are allowing myself only 2 steps back with a Control-Z, just to kind of still keep the vibe of making something look intentional and having to fix mistakes. Because it may act a little rational. Rational like... so So many people who just can't, let things slide. They have to have full control over everything, or they're scared that things will change in a way they don't want. Instead of just accepting that times change. Times change in ways that they will not be able to predict, and adapting, they want full control. It's become dangerous. Oh, so dangerous. I am gonna this up a little bit to the side, but also because I want to make a mirrored version. Let's do this real quick. But yeah, they're trying to do it by changing how licenses are done. That's not going to work. Okay. I think we're going to have to resize this. No, wait, let's rotate. Shift S. Shit. Okay, there we go. Yeah, some of you might be going, well, how does running back this law that allowed people to change their gender marking, how does undoing that allowance affect their voter registration? How does this take away someone's right to vote? Well, a lot of states require a proof of who you are when you go in to vote. When you go in person. And, well, if they don't have a valid license, and they don't know it's not valid, during a midterm election year, it very well may not be something they have enough time to get fixed before it comes to pass. They might go in thinking they can vote, and it's like, oh, sorry, this is no longer a valid ID. In fact, it's flagged as invalid. We're going to call the cops because we're pretty sure you drove here. It's like, the fuck are you talking about? I haven't even pulled over this year, which would be how they, didn't know it was invalid. Yeah. It's an issue. Because now there they are on election day, unable to vote. Unable to vote at all. To choose their rep. They're the person who is supposed to represent them in Congress and the White House just is okay with it, because that is exactly what they want. They want it harder for anyone to vote against them. They want to make it harder for any dissenters to undo what they want done. And if this is found all good and legal, and that Kansas was allowed to do it, other states will follow suit. Not just against trans people. Against every minority that is in danger. Everyone who's not white enough. Everyone they do not want to have the right to vote. They will find some excuse, claim it is the way the law is written, sorry that innocent people are getting caught up, we will work to fix it, and then they won't. They will not work to fix it, because the purpose of a thing is what it does, and if what it does is cause their political enemies and opponents and people who will not vote for them, unable to vote for their opponents, they have no qualms with that. They are totally okay with that decision. And instead of doing anything to fix it, they will make it easier to happen to more and more people. They'll make it easier to happen so that people have less say in their government, in their elected officials, in those who would say, nah, this is fucked up and illegal, we're undoing that ASAP. This is where I have a message for the fucking Democrats who need to figure out and learn how this new attempt at taking over the country so that they can never make it back in the top two parties is going to work. They're going to make it harder and harder for people to support you. They've already done that. They tried to target super PACs and donation groups that support Democrats to raise funding. They specifically started investigations claiming it was fraudulent or criminal. And I just realized I did that on the wrong side. Okay, we're gonna hide the sin by doing this. There we go. Yeah, they're gonna make it harder and harder for them to fight back. They're gonna do it bit by bit. They're gonna do death by 1,000 cuts, because that makes it all the harder for Democrats to actually fight against. Just keep leading them on. It's like, oh, well, if you keep following what little daddy Trump wants to do, eventually you'll have the chance to get power back. Oh, yeah, as if there wasn't a proposal to allow Trump to get a third term, specifically worded so that Trump could get a third term, put forward. And that got quashed pretty quickly, but don't pretend that, they're not going to try and do that again. That they're not going to try and add a bunch of nice little favors that the Democrats will get out of it to make their constituents happy for such a bill. Name it something innocuous and nothing to do with giving Trump a third term, and then they'll get that third term and have placated their enemies at the same time. And this isn't a what if. That's how rule of law works in Congress. Something doesn't pass the first time, they try it again and again and again. It's frustrating. It's frustrating that people will sign away their rights, all because they're not willing to look forward. They're not willing to look into the what-ifs. In fact, they will decry those who are correctly foreseeing these what-ifs. They'll say that they're, worrying too much. That's not what's going to happen. That's illegal. It would never be allowed. A lot of things legally are not allowed, and yet happen regardless. That's what makes them so dangerous. That someone should have spoken up but didn't. They didn't because it sets precedent that allows harsher crimes to occur. Or they try to pawn off on their boss, like, we were told to do it this way. And it's my job. I couldn't just stop doing my job. Then they would fire me. It's like, no. We learned after World War II, we learned that soldiers are allowed to say no to fucked up orders from their superiors. They did not have to follow bad orders simply because they were told to. In fact, at minimum, the U.S. military, which I have some experience with a high school ROTC and multiple siblings who joined it, they're trained early on, at minimum, that they don't have to follow bad orders. That they do not have to do bad things just because their commanding officer said to do so. That is, in fact, their moral obligation to refuse, and what's more, report the officers who are trying to get them to do some fucked up illegal shit. Yeah. And we were seeing some moments of that, at the very least from ICE. Some people were trying to report commanding officers wanting them to do illegal search, seizures, illegal arrests, and their morals did get them to go, you know what, I think we might be the baddies, speak up, and then, they just get fired without pay. Example for the others, you want to get paid because we haven't been paying you. We've been delaying those payments again and again and again, haven't been paying you. You want to get that pay? Well, you're going to have to shut the fuck up about our crimes. Let's see, I think we do another one right here and then there. And these fools keep falling for it. Again and again they fall for it. They want to get paid, though. It's the reason they took this job. They wanted to get paid. And the ones who would have reported fall in line. They give up their morals for a paycheck. Because, they're in too deep now, aren't they? If they don't even get paid for this, what does that make them? Someone who's willing to admit these atrocities for a paycheck, and they don't even get paid? It's like, nah. They don't want to be that guy. That'd mean they're the bad guy. That'd mean they're the villain. But that's the thing. They were always a villain. They were willing to do that stuff for a paycheck, and they stay despite not even getting that. You can't differentiate them from the actual assholes who, would take a paycheck if they could get it, but any excuse to allow them to commit these crimes, well, that's good enough. The extra pay was never the point. It was just the excuse. And now we can't tell who are those people who just needed a paycheck, any paycheck, and those who just wanted to commit atrocities, no matter what foul bastard and what they promised was real or not. I don't like it. I don't like that people are so willing to work against their own self-interest. Just for money. Just pretend they have power. I thought the great thing about humans was supposed to be we have morals, we have intelligence, we're willing to think through a problem and find a solution that does not involve or devolve, rather, to violence and murder and all these savage things. All these horrendous, horrific things. That was supposed to be the good thing about us. But no, all of that can be thrown away. Thrown away like a fart in the wind as not the point. I just don't get it. This thing is, it's never gonna stop. They're gonna just keep taking and taking what they want until they have everything. After trans people are gone and made illegal, you think they're not going to go after the rest of the LGBTQIA community? They're not going to eventually go after women's rights again. That's right, again. Because they're already doing that. They're already coming after women's rights. The right to abortion, right to choose over their own body. A woman declared brain dead and incapable of recovering to have a normal life again. Forcibly kept alive by the hospital against the wishes of the family because she had an unborn fetus. Because there's a chance of that becoming a good and proper citizen of America, forcibly kept on life support till the fetus could come to term well enough that they could be, I'm going to use this term for a reason, extracted, C-sectioned out, and erased. Except that even by those measures, they were not able to keep that fetus alive. Regardless of your moral opinion on whether that would still be considered alive or not in their attempt, the fact of the matter remains, it did not survive. Despite what they wanted to do, it did not survive. And what's worse, despite the fact that the family was willing to let their loved one die, the fetus in there or not, they got stuck with the bill. They had to pay for this despite it was against their wishes. And they are stuck with an expensive bill. All because some fucking right-to-lifer said, no, you don't get bodily autonomy if you are brain dead. Hey, Barango, I'm just doing this kind of like brain dead art, griping about how things have reached a turning point where if any intelligent person refuses to see the danger, I cannot help but think that they cannot be trusted. I'm sure you've heard about the canvas driver's licenses and the unsaid thing about making those licenses invalid, and especially if they do so without ensuring everyone affected knows. Like, I know it's supposed to be emails, but it's like, how often do people check emails? Is there a chance they'll think it's a scam or some such, trying to out them or put them in danger? If they did not ensure that everyone knows that it is legal, people could drive around with invalid licenses, get pulled over, and arrested. The other thing, what's the other thing? The Kansas license thing is the big thing that made me cry and killed my throat this weekend. But it might have just overshadowed other thing. Yeah, I think that's good enough on that side. Oh, right, the forced transition yet. Yeah. Yeah, the license thing did kind of overshadow it, if only because that felt like a very first step to me. As I just said, it's like if someone does not know, gets pulled over by a cop. Well, if they have an invalid license and they're driving without a valid license, well, that's illegal. They can take them in. And by making it illegal, that's a potential first step to making that a felony, making that a potential criminal sentence thing. Or worse, if that crime doesn't get there, if they do go along and have their gender markings returned back, but they've already, medically and physically transitioned, they might get pulled over by a cop in the future who's like, this looks like a fake ID. You have a big bushy beard and no breasts. Clearly you can't have been born a woman. And, having a false ID is definitely a worse crime in the eyes of the law. Something that gets them jail time and forcibly detransitioned against their will. Another case of bodily autonomy taken away. The Dems aren't going to do anything about it, are they? Or if they do, it's going to be all half-assed stuff and not enough action. The action will have to be taken by people suffering from it. The worst part is that that means we are beyond the point of vote blue no matter who. Because we can't even trust that, can we? We'd love to be able to just vote blue no matter who and trust that the person is, actually a Democrat. But what about Mr. Governor of California, who's all buddy-buddy with Republicans, voting alongside with them, hating trans athletes despite none being in any relevant teams, claiming that scout-type groups don't allow them, prompting messages from said groups saying, it's like, no, we're totally okay with them. We have absolutely no fucking problem, you creep. Neither of those incidents would make you cry if you aren't becoming numb to the horrors. Well, that's one thing I don't allow myself to be, numb. I did some crying. But I'm past the crying now. And I'm just pissed. Frankly, I'm not sure what else I can do. I came so fucking close. I didn't, but I came so fucking close to reaching out to the family I've already disowned because I can't trust them to make the right decisions. Because during the run-up to the first term of this would-be dictator, when he talked about bragging about his sexual assault of women, grabbing them by the pussy, and they thought, nah, he's just as bad as this woman. It's like, look, Hillary was not perfect. No one claimed Hillary was perfect. But you know what? She wasn't bragging about sexually assaulting people. She wasn't throwing that in people's faces. She was not saying the quiet part out loud for so many racist groups that the Klan openly supported her. They voted third party because they refused to, feel shame for voting for whatever fucked up shit happened. And look where we are. Came so close to calling them, just yelling, throwing that shit in their face, just screaming of how such an emotionally intelligent person as I am, dumb as I am at moments, sure, but certainly more emotionally intelligent than them, could have come from their upbringing of me. I haven't spoken to them in years. Last time I did was yelling at them about their treatment of my grandmother, who is in a care home, close to medical professionals who can help her, yes, but in a different state from all the friends and family she had in California. Friends and family who can't just, go down the street or take an Uber to visit her like they used to. That's no longer an option for them. All because the people who raised me don't want to have to fly out there if another emergency happens. Well, how about getting her a home there at least? Not every medical decision will have to be made at her bedside. And if a job doesn't understand when things are dire and you're trying to go get your last words with her, then, get a different job in anticipation of that. They ripped her from the support network she had. She's in a different place. In the moments when her memories are struggling, it's rough on her, is the point. She doesn't have the friends to come and help her remember, and they certainly aren't seeing her every fucking day. One sec. Yeah. Because they didn't want to have to worry about flying out when the unthinkable happens. She's in a home far from the friends that she got to see for decades. When they were gone in other states, pursuing their dreams or jobs or raising their family. Now, they demanded that, she move to this old folks' home closer to them so they don't have to travel to see her at her deathbed. And she's miserable. Every call I have with her, several times she mentions how miserable she is not being able to see her friends. Even if she can't drink, she could have been at the bar exchanging stories with them. If any of them passed before her, she's not going to be able to go to their funerals. She's not going to be able to do that. She's not going to be able to have her last words with them. Their group is shrinking. And they have taken those opportunities from her because they want that opportunity with her. It's selfish. And they're not worth the time anymore. I did my best to educate them. In that first election that got him his first term, I brought out so much evidence. Not specifically even about him. Just trying to get them not to vote third party. Because it doesn't do anything. At least not for the presidential election. The last third party candidate to win the presidency was Abraham Lincoln. And you might go, that can't be right, Lucy. Lincoln was a Republican. How could he have been a third party in that? That's not how that works. The top two parties have changed over time. It has not always been Democrat and Republican. Fucking Roosevelt was part of the Bull Moose Party. But the thing is, at the time, the Bull Moose Party had enough seats in the House, had enough governorships across the country to prove that they were one of the top two political powers. He was not a third-party candidate when he won his multiple elections. If I recall the right president, he's the one that, because of how many times he kept winning, kept getting presidency after presidency, and they had to make a law capping it at 2 terms for everyone else, and that term at the time was his last one. All 4 of them. Thank you. Yeah, you fucking won them. He won them so hard, they're like, we gotta make sure no one else can do that. And even at the time, he was not a third-party candidate. He wasn't. So many articles like that just saying, hey, could you stop voting third party? Could you actually try to influence the election? And they said, okay, we hear you. We're going to take this into consideration. And after that fucker won, they bragged about, well, they won't be responsible for any of the shit he does because they voted third party again. Oh, how great. You see, I could have actually had some respect for them if they voted Trump. Because that meant that they didn't vote third party. That they were willing to try and take a stand for what they believed in. But they didn't. They wouldn't. And I heard from siblings, they did the same thing for this last presidential election. Voted third party, and we're glad for it. Here we are again. So I'm pissy. But I'm past the point of just yelling. For anyone who's still here, for the VODs on YouTube later, I thank you for your patience. And I also have a warning for you. So, Since like technically did make a stand for what they believe in, yeah. But it proved that what they believed in was not facts, which was the problem. If they voted Trump, like I said, it would have meant there was hope, because it meant I was able to convince them with facts, and they were willing not to be as have as stiff a moral backbone as a wet piece of spaghetti. It meant their mind could be changed, but it can't. As I said, right, the people who have stuck around this long with the VOD, thank you for your patience. Some advice for what is to come. Whether you believe you're in danger or not, you are. And you should take into consideration some ways to protect yourselves. And I am not talking about like gun ownership or what have you. If you think that's really what you need, I mean, you're not waiting on me to say that anyway. Any sites or apps that is trying to do what Discord and Twitch are doing, forcing you to have your ID, ditch them. If they implement it in the future, leave before they do. Get out of there, because the weakest part of security is a signal for how much you can trust a thing. Let's ignore the fact that Discord lost 70,000 plus ID information months ago in the UK, when the UK forced and rushed age verification methods like that. Right? Let's ignore that happened. The more companies that actually do that, the more likely it is that someone somewhere is going to fuck up like Discord already has. The more fuck-ups there are, the easier it is for someone who does not get good enough security precautions set up is going to lose your information. It'll just be a matter of time. The more people that insist upon it, the more likely it's going to happen. So I mean, think about it. How many times do fucking passwords get leaked in masse because some hacker gets in and sells them en masse? And that's just your password. You can't change your government ID info. Your address is still on that shit. And anyone who might think that you are the wrong sort of people or have the wrong sort of beliefs will be able to look you up, confirm your face and your address, and find you. Lynching was not qualified as a hate crime until the last 10 years. Less than that, really. But I just can't remember the exact year. Lynching, which was almost exclusively for minorities, and that the best findable articles about such happened after the Civil War and when black people got the right to vote. Anyone with common sense knows lynching is a hate crime, and now anyone with the right tools will be able to commit it against you. So don't let any site get your ID. Even if it seems totally reasonable for them, don't. The more places that have it, the less secure it is. Ringo saying, try not to be numb to the horrors, but I have to bring myself to feel and not be able to not feel or see what is causing problems exactly. Becoming numb to the problems is exactly what they want. They want no one to be able to think clearly. They want everyone to be scared, to be unable to think reasonably, to make mistakes. Mistakes that they can capitalize on. Because a scared populace is a easily cowed populace. It's what they want. They will do everything they can to get. Because it's no longer about rights. It's but what they can get away with and how they can profit from it. And I'm mostly just tired of it at this point. We can't even trust the people we elect anymore. I wish we could. I really wish we could. But they don't want it. They don't want trust from us, they want profit from us. At any expense. So as I was saying, don't trust any company, any app, anything with your ID. Because it is just a matter of when it gets lost in some massive leak. Not a matter of if. The purpose of a machine is what it does. And if the purpose of the machine is to, lose your info handily enough that any asshole with a vendetta against you can, take advantage. Say, finding out that you're a trans person, and now knowing exactly where you live. Even if the address changes, even if you find somewhere safe, they've narrowed you down to a particular state, haven't they? And likely in the small range of towns around it. And we're seeing proof more and more that that is not the end goal. They will come for women's rights. They already have. I think I was going on this before Barango got here, but the right to your own bodily autonomy. They don't want women to get abortions, because that means men can't trap them in loveless marriages. Can't trap them with a baby when they would otherwise never even give that man a time of day. Did everyone watching this at this point still know that there are multiple states where it is completely legal to marry a child? Because the only thing you need to get a judge to approve a wedding is if the parents are okay with it. And if, they're trying to save you from a life of sin because you were raped by an uncle or otherwise trusted family friend, well, of course they're going to go along with that marriage to save your immortal soul. And now you're trapped in a loveless marriage with someone who does not care about what you want. It's how they got you into that loveless marriage in the first place. It's not going to end there. You're trapped with a baby in a loveless marriage, well, chances are you just might lash out at that baby. You can't lash out at your husband. That's not how things work. You're not allowed to. Because they're just going to beat you harder than they will ever let you beat them. So you might lash out at your kid instead. Now they are growing up in a broken home. Parents who don't even love them. Because they were just told the importance of having a child without, ensuring that you have enough money to live and support your child or anything. Just fucked up. What people will do just to ensure that they can be the man of the house, the king of their own castle, to feel powerful when they are not. And after, people have already been forced to at least pretend to be cis and straight everywhere, well, after that, they're going to go after women's rights. They're already working on abortion rights. Some other women's rights some people aren't familiar is still rather new concept. A woman's rights to have her own bank account without permission from her father or husband. Yeah, that's still pretty new. My grandmother was born in a time when that was not allowed. Banks literally would not give you a bank account if you were a woman if you did not have a man to sign for you. Just didn't happen. And that time will return. Because if you can't have your own bank account, well, it's even harder for you to say no, harder for you to save up money, harder for you to have control over your own life without the say of a man. It's just like, what's the point? What's the point of living if you don't have the right to do what you want? Well, you think the medieval times were such a great time at all? Just because people were able to be self-sufficient? Yeah, but what cost? Fucking infant mortality? Horrendous. Hell, that's another issue that didn't really stabilize until recent years. And even now, people are trying to, undo fucking vaccinations? Things that keep your kids alive, give them better chances to live to adulthood? As expensive as it is to have a kid nowadays, what if it was more expensive and you had to have 2 or 3 before you had any that survived past the age of 5? Or heck, the stories we still get nowadays of men who leave because they're cheating on their wives. They get divorced because they didn't want some old hag. They want the new hotness. Well, you've been nothing but a homemaker for years. You can't have a bank account of your own. If you're left high and dry without even rights to part of his income if he divorces you, well, what the fuck are you going to do? Another loveless marriage, hoping that this one won't run off? What there is to live for is to fight for a better world. Yep. And, that's a big reason I'm making this piece today. All right, you weren't here for that part. At the beginning, I have... Here, let me rearrange layers. It's not appearing correctly. These big gaps here that I'm not drawing in, I have some text pre-typed up, formatted just for there, for after I get this whole thing made. I want to make sure I don't cover them up, hence this separate layer. In about another half hour, I think I'll be good and done with this piece. I can go ahead and reveal that text. Because as I said, I'm done crying for what's happening. I've always been working to help protect people in my way. Even with me trying to work towards selling this currently place so I can get closer to family. Hopefully, an area I can do better to help protect those I care about, whether I know them personally or not. I've been making preparations for that. Funds are just low at this moment. But this is a protest piece. Not just against the current practices, also protesting the people who, like those two who raised me, those who are dead to me in all but actuality. Telling them to get off their ass and act, because it is only a matter of time before they come for you. And they saw the same movies we have. The resistance taking down the empire, the rebel alliance. We can't just use the same tactics as them, because they saw those movies too. They're going to act to crush us and our hope. So we must have hope regardless. We're living in a time where having hope is a spiteful act. But if it works, it works. We must contact our representatives and force them to act and force them to understand. Any Democrats you want to attack, you can go ahead and quote me on this. Understand that if you do not fight corruption before they come for you, they will make sure you can never be elected again. You've already seen them come after your super PACs, fighting the sources of your election funds. If they cut you off from funds, it's only a matter of time before they cut you off from any legal ways to prevent election interference. More voter suppression, like the secondary effect of the Kansas driving ID issues. You gotta act now before they keep taking away your opportunities to act against them. You gotta stop thinking about profit for the future and start thinking about your survivability now. Because, maybe they won't turn this into a bloody revolution after taking away all your power. Maybe they won't. Maybe they'll let you live, unable to act against them in any legal capacity. You'll still be high and dry because all you're able to do was make money the same way they were, through election funds and getting reelected, and the right companies greasing your pawns to help them get rich. What are you going to do after that well dries up, huh? After your constituents saw that you did nothing, you think they're going to keep supporting you with fucking crowdfunding campaigns? Like, oh, please, I'm just a poor politician who can't even do that anymore. How will I get by? Fucking better get behind the chicken coop and start sucking duck dick to get some golden eggs yourself. Because all those farmers and ranchers aren't making fuck all for it either. Not even the ones who did back Trump and his claims of making America great again, making things affordable again. It's not happening. You gotta stop trying to run on the same promises they're making. Because that's not what your constituents want. They want you to be different than them. You can't just be Republican light because, people are going to keep still voting Republican. They're not going to change just because a Democrat says, hey, we got the same views as you. It's like, nah, they like what's happening. They love it, in fact. You got to get something new, something fresh, something divisive. Or you're just the Temu version of Republicans. Just be nice that you could, do anything. Fucking anything. Grow some fucking spines, guys. I was gonna do that, but that would just look weird. Let's see this. Get a little knobbly on there. There we go. I think go circles here. It's just kind of like random whatever I'm thinking. Point is just to have nice confident lines. Made it a little difficult because I'm using an actual brush type nub. I'll do probably just so it's. I gotta do bigger to make that visible, like that. That is the shape of the brush. But it's just a nice little challenge to myself to work with something so strange, despite trying to have confident lines. I don't think I've even done this since high school, when I learned about it. Alright, this, I think was 9? No, that was a 6. use the sides first. Reminder to those on social media, so this is where we go. Don't say things on unencrypted platforms that will get you arrested, as you can't fight effectively from prison. Exactly. Now, let's see. As a counter thing to that, some people doing research on effective protests, you might come across a forum where you are looking to get arrested. Part of the protest is actually being picked up and arrested effectively. Those methods of fighting back in protest is typically there's people who are designated as being arrested. Specific people meant to be arrested as part of this protest. It's not just all willy-nilly randomness. It is planned so you know who to bail out, how much you're likely to need for their needs, and going after the people whose lives will be fucked up the least by the decision. This is notably for things like not young people. Arrest record can ruin their chance of getting jobs in the future. You don't risk it. You don't throw them under the bus, even if it's part of a planned protest. It's people who can survive their day jobs not having them for a bit. Effective protests are always planned to some degree. If you aren't planning, you're not actually protesting. Let's see. Just another thing, advice. Peaceful protesting is hard. And that is a fact you have to live with. It's going to be hard. If it was just easy, it wouldn't get media attention. Media attention, which is also going to be hard enough as it is. As you know, they've made it really hard for media to do anything without Trump's okay. I'm not even talking about what they're allowed to show. Threatening people, getting talk show hosts fired just for, being critical of the Trump campaign and what they're doing. So if they're using their influence to silence media like that, you now have a state media who only do and say what you let them. There are ways to peaceful protest to ensure that you still get, media attention. Oh, accidentally don't click that. But you do have to plan for it. Social media methods, which can get harder and harder the more, also require government IDs to prove that you're a real person. It's like other ways to do that. But like I said, they're just getting on the bandwagon of getting your info so that they can sell it to the highest bidder and not put enough protections to keep the wrong sort of hacker to eventually get it. Because it is just a matter of time at that point. Don't post things that make your friends and allies lose their will to live. Don't spread sometimes you do need to share the bad news so people can prepare for it. But you also need to spread the good news. Not only to help keep morale up, but because right now so many algorithms are based on negativity. Negativity gets responses, gets upvotes, gets people looking at it. So you need to get some good news out there. Your comrades need to feel like there's hope. Doom scrolling will only get you so far. Doing things out of spite will only get you so far. You still need to actively act. Call your representatives while they still have any say in the government. It's hard. It's hard having to make choices and do things. But that is the cost of getting a choice in how you live your life. In the Age of Kings, serfs were not allowed to just move wherever they wanted. You lived under your local lord. You paid your taxes to said lord. And if you wanted to move, well, you better hope some mercenaries come through to give you an excuse to get away, or else your lord will hunt you down, make you pay back taxes. You are just slaves by another name. It is why when talking about the slave trade that caused the Civil War in America, it is referred to as chattel slavery, because it is just one form of slavery. The good old days were anything but, because the greatest horrors can only be understood when you have to live through them. Protect your identity. By extension, get your friends and family to protect theirs. I said it before on this channel, you should not use your real name anywhere you can get away with it. You should avoid using anything that is a nickname of your real name as well. You need to 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon any actual site from connecting to things with regular reasons to have your real name, like your bank. It's the way you gotta live. The fact of the matter is, it doesn't matter if you are a criminal or not. Anyone who tries the if you are innocent, if you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear, is someone you should be scared of. Because it's not about whether or not you've done anything wrong in the eyes of the law. It's whether or not you've done anything wrong in the eyes of them. In the eyes of the officers who are supposed to be enforcing the law, though they do not. Yes, to quote Sam Vimes from Discworld, well, paraphrase, unless you're getting the real quote. Sam didn't like the phrase, the innocent have nothing to fear. The innocent had plenty to fear, mostly from the guilty, but in the long run, more so from people who say things like, the innocent have nothing to fear. I probably misremembered a few words on that, but it is one of the favorite quotes I have of Discworld. All it takes is a lack of alibi and a passing resemblance to a criminal for someone to be accidentally arrested forever, put on death row. Ah, you got it. You got the exact quote, Rango. Nice. Yeah, it is far easier to be arrested for a crime you did not commit than for one you do. And think about how easy it actually is to be arrested if you commit a crime, even as minor as shoplifting. If you can be arrested falsely, even easier than that, that's a problem. That's how they got Luigi Mangione, who probably isn't even the claim adjusted. Yeah, exactly. And it's like fucking... First off, anyone who thinks that he is a murderer is an idiot off the gap. Anyone who thinks he's guilty is an idiot. Because is it not supposed to be true in this country that you are innocent until proven guilty? And as I understand, he still hasn't had his day in court, has he? It's been a lot of court hearings about arguing what is and is not actually admissible in the court, what evidence should be allowed to stand and what shouldn't. But we are supposed to be a country where people have to prove you are guilty, rather than people having to prove that they themselves are innocent. Proving guilt requires proof. Sorry. I think I got the words mixed up there. Proving guilt requires proof of that guilt. Proving innocence, however, you have to prove something is false rather than that something is true. Because it's a lot easier to say, it's like, well, he's in the area at the time. Is that not good enough? And now you gotta prove your innocence against that? It's like, plenty of people happen to be in the areas crimes are committed. Anyone who's been at a robbery at a bank, you have been in a place where a crime was committed while it was committed. You did not do it, but you were there when it happened. If that's all they have on you, that's still pretty damning evidence, especially with how they spin it. Proving that you were not involved is a lot harder than proving that someone is. Especially if you can get away with just presence. Excuse me. Well, I think that's good enough. Let's see. The next step I was going to do. Where's the tool? There we go. Select by color. Take all this and layer mask from selection. All right. Let's see how this looks. Ooh, I do like that. Do like that a lot. But let's do alternative. I think this one. Anyone else ever played with those art things where you scratch off a black sheet and reveals colors underneath it? I'm doing a similar effect to that. But wait. Alright, I forgot to get these selections back on there. Okay, how's this one look? Looks a little less trans colors and more like an off yellow. Let's go in and fix that. Closer to white. Okay. Looks a little bit better, but maybe a bit too American flag coded. I'm a little proud of this effect. I'm going to show it off without the layer mask for a second, just disable that. So earlier today, I whipped up this because I was going through my old Tumblr saved draft stuff, and I came across this art thing. It's like, how do you do a nice shiny linoleum floor, right? And what they did, that's actually, I think I got enough time to even show it off. Let's just do shiny floor for the name of this layer. It's not super complicated. Like the way I did it might have been a bit complicated because I accidentally merged layers when I shouldn't have. But okay, let's start with bring it here in chat. Go ahead and give me a color. I'm going to use red as this base color, so anything other than red. Also, when did that turn out? There we go. Green? Alright, I'll get a nice couple of greens. Let's go. Where's this green? We're going to need a bigger brush size as well as opacity. Yes. Well, actually, not opaque enough. There we go. That way we're getting some different layers. A bit more, let's say. We'll do kind of like a round shape. This, and then some kind of like that. Not sure what these are supposed to be reflecting, but it does not matter for the sake of making this. The other one for the highlight color, I'm going to do another lighter green. Ooh, we should make that more opaque though. Just because the size of the brush is kind of making things look a little weird. The point is, you don't do that entirely perfect. You don't need it to be. For this next step, which is going through filters, blur, linear motion blur. We're going to start 90, which is up and down. Increase the length to about there, we'll say. That's almost 60. Length on this. Then we go back. Oh, and again. For, there it is, linear blur this time. And do it just at the side. Not quite that much though. Yeah, 32. Then a third one. There we skin, 90 degrees, but this last one doesn't need to be quite as long. Okay, we got that. As you can see, it's kind of been brought in at the edges the way we've done it. Next, what we do is we expand it back out the borders again. Not quite all the way. And you might think it's like that's very clear, like different colors thing. Don't worry. Next steps will help fix this. On this layer, I'm going to start with this. We're going to... Actually, no, we'll go normal round brush for this. Down to, say, 5. No, bigger than that. Bigger than that. Let's say 13. There we go. Okay, I'm creating a vanishing point up here. So straight lines. Actually, the way I should mark this. Yeah, right here. We'll do it just from right here at this 250 point. Just make it easier to keep track of. Lines don't have to be perfectly spaced. Because there's a way to just like hold shift and it'll make a line from whatever the 2 points were. Ensures this perspective thing will stay. And then for the sides, you can just do perfectly parallel. You can do a 2 perspective thing, but it's a lot harder to make that look good. And just kind of like more or less evenly. You can also have things kind of expand out, kind of like trippy effect. Right. I got that one lined, come back through with a darker one. Same point, but make it slightly off to the side. Or, the much easier route, copy the whole thing. Copy, new layer. There we go. Paste. And then scooch over. And up. There we go. Then for this layer, you can do 2 things. You can multiply, which we're just going to show off like that. Or what we're going to do. Or are you saying ow because of the colors? Like, yeah. Or we can hue chroma, go through and just make this dark, which allows us to also like increase the chroma color, even just like kind of shift it away from the green a little bit. I'll do it there. It's a little bit more of a blue-green. Oh, Back's very unhappy? Yeah. Back's very much do be like that sometimes. That's fine, but cooperative? Yeah. Okay, going through here again. And actually, we're gonna combine the 2 layers of the grout, more or less, because we're gonna come back through here with an eraser tool. Big brush, which we can get a little fancy with this time. Reduce it. That way we're only slightly lightening over these highlighted parts. If you like, you can also do the opposite with a dark color. Let's see. Multiply, low opacity, there we go. A little bit less opacity. There you go. That's not doing it. Oh, right, I forgot. Inverted, so we're only darkening those because we are going over with another color. That way the darkening is only happening on the grout spots itself. And if this still does not look quite as clean as that does, what we can do is we can just go to that layer and do another just more general blur. Oh, there we go, Gaussian blur. It looks a lot better if you do a smaller color palette than red on green, but it still looks pretty close. course, AO3 is down. Again? It was down last night for maintenance, too. Which sucked, because I was in the middle of binge reading on my phone. I actually went to bed at a reasonable time. And I was just like, okay, we're going to read 2 more chapters. And I'm like, oh, we can't even do that. Yeah. Merge down. That is how I made that kind of like floor grout. If you do it with more intention, my kind of like slapdash thing, you can get impressive looks like this, which was actually trans flag gradient, and then going back with a couple layers of the blue and the pink. And for some reason, this grout looks like it's not there. I'm not even sure. I can't remember what brush I used for that effect. But anyway, there's re-enabled the layer mask. So now we got trans colorness on this, like one of the cool scratch away arts. Not perfect, especially these starting areas, but I do like it. Now it's time for the text, which I probably need to color adjust before I can like properly post. But I was looking up this old meme poem type thing from Tumblr a few years back. The fear within me is beyond anything your soul can make. You cannot kill me in a way that matters. And it is not just this kind of graffiti text over it, separate on each of those, but I've got a fancy, very fancy, almost like medieval inspired looking font over which this red graffiti, because, you know, we're done being nice, courteous, overly formal. We're ready to bite back at the hand that claims it's feeding us when all it's giving us is poison. Decay exists as an extant form of life is actually the title I was going to post this as. Yeah, that is exactly what I'm referencing. I intended to originally just do like a big mushroom somewhere, but I thought that's a bit too defeatist. I think this is enough for the connection to the fact that like fungi have like dozens of genders, which is strange, but it's also like not a mammal. So, you know, why we gotta judge the humble mushroom? It's just getting by the way that nature has allowed it to survive. Because if it didn't survive, despite having dozens of genders, then it wouldn't keep surviving. But it does, because gender is a construct, as is law. And our purpose right now is to make sure that the construct of law does not declare that some people are deserving of death just because they do not exist in a way that is palatable to a bunch of people who were funded by a pedophile human slave ring. Epstein files. Sorry, just this nasty cough that's been bugging me for months at this point. Yep. Hour and a half in. We're gonna go ahead and take a short break before some Minecraft, which was gonna be some fun village building and stuff. But I'm just gonna put on a playlist, and we're not gonna list the VOD on Twitch for copyright reasons, and do some mindless just building creative stuff. Just terraforming type dealies. As such, because this art will be the only part of the VOD to be put on YouTube later, those of you watching there, I hope you are eating enough, drinking enough, getting enough sleep. Take care of your bodies so your body can take care of you. And keep in touch with your elected representatives to make sure that they are still giving a fuck about what you want. Because they cannot listen to a voice they do not hear. With that, this VOD shall end.